Nikkinikki plays Commander Episode 2. Let's introduce our players for today. Player 1, Nikki, piloting Shorikai, Genesis Engine. Player 2, Roj, his commander is Witherbloom, the Balancer. Player number 3 is Igi, his commanders are Tymna the Weaver and Kraum Ludevic's Opus. Last player is Iban, piloting Ms. Bumbleflower. So without further ado, let's start this blissful brotherly bracket 3 boog boogan, na my conting cheese me son.
Nikki draws a card and plays a Drukkar Waste. Iban draws and plays Temple of Plenty. Scries 1, then passes. Igi draws and plays Morphic Pool as land for turn. Then he casts a turn 1 Soul Ring. In response, Nikki says,
Aray mo!
Raj draws and plays a Forest. He casts Elvish Mystic. He passes the turn. Nikki draws a card. She plays a Plains, then casts Ornithopter of Paradise. She passes. Iban draws a card. He plays a tapped Canopy Vista. He casts Birds of Paradise, then passes. Igi draws and plays Polluted Delta. He cracks it, pays 1 life and searches Hallowed Fountain. It enters the battlefield untapped. Igi loses 2 more life. He plays a turn 2 Displacer Kitten. Nikki, again in response, says,
Ayan na!
Result,
Displacer Kitten resolves, and after saying,
not game changer.
Igi passes the turn. Raj draws for turn, then plays a Swamp. He casts Stench Sanguinist. During combat phase, Raj attacks Iban with an Elvish Mystic. Iban takes the damage and Stench Sanguinist becomes prepared. Raj passes the turn while Nikki is saying,
Prepare!
Nikki draws a card and plays a tapped Tolarian West as land for turn. She casts Thought Vessel, then passes. Iban untaps, draws a card and plays an island. He casts Noble Hierarch. He passes. Igi untaps. He draws a card. He plays Emergence Zone as land for turn. Then he casts Teferi Time Reveler. Displacer Kitten's ability triggers, and Igi chooses to blink Soul Ring. If Teferi Time Reveler resolves, Igi will have almost infinite card draw and colorless mana. This can be done by tapping Soul Ring for 2 mana, using the second ability of Teferi to return Soul Ring to hand and draw a card. Casting Soul Ring again for 1 mana to trigger Displacer Kitten's ability. This time the target of the blink will be Teferi Time Reveler to refresh his loyalty counter and ability trigger. Ig can then again tap Soul Ring for 2 mana and repeat the process, gaining almost infinite colorless mana and storm count until he draws a win con. Nikki, in response, casts Silence to stop Igi's advances. The camera took 1 damage due to that. Igi has no response, and while Silence and Teferi are on the stack, Iban casts Reality Shift targeting Displacer Kitten. Reality Shift resolves, Displacer Kitten is exiled. Silence resolves, Teferi resolves, Soul Ring blinks. Igi activates Teferi's first ability, then passes the turn. Raj untaps, draws a card and plays Woodland Cemetery. He moves to combat and attacks Teferi with Elvish Mystic and Stench Sanguinist. Having no blockers, Teferi takes 3 damage. Raj ends his turn. Nikki untaps, draws a card, and plays a Plains. She then casts her commander, Shorikai, Genesis Engine. Nikki passes the turn. Iban untaps, draws a card and plays a Breeding Pool. It enters the battlefield untapped and Iban loses 2 life. He then casts his commander Ms. Bumbleflower. In response, Nikki says,
Hindi na talaga nagana utak ko. Kailangan na nito na samgipsal talaga.
Iban ends his turn. Igi untaps, draws a card and plays Bloodstained Mire. He pays 1 life to fetch Steam Vents that enters the battlefield untapped. He again loses 2 life. He activates Teferi's first ability. He then casts one of his commanders, Kraum Ludevic's Opus. Then Igi passes the turn. Raj draws a card. Plays a Vernalfen as land for turn, then attacks Teferi again with a Death-touched Stench Sanguinist. Igi refuses to block and Teferi takes 2 damage. Nikki activates Shorikai's ability before Raj ends his turn. She draws 2 cards, discards a card and creates a 1/1 pilot token. Nikki untaps and draws a card for turn. She, then, very slowly, floats 1 white 1 colorless and another white mana. Iban smells something and says,
2 white, 1
Parang ayoko
colorless.
yan 2 white. Tama na sabi niya eh.
Out of time.
Nikki casts Out of Time. Since Teferi Time Reveler is on the field, players aside from Igi cannot cast counterspells, so Out of Time resolves and all creatures phases out for only 8 turns.
Okay, so,
Mukhang resolve sa akin. So basta face out to.
ito siya.
Grabe naman yung nag-out of time na
Bawal
player.
prepare nito, no?
Hindi,
May
babalik
babalik naman yan. Babalik naman.
Uy,
Face out
Lagyan
na.
ako ng
Ito,
turn counter.
8, 8.
At
Moving on. Nikki casts Trinket Mage. She tutors for a Sensei's Divining Top, reveals it, then puts it to her hand. She then, very happily, passes the turn. Iban untaps, draws a card, then plays a Scrawling Crawler. He passes the turn. Iggy untaps and draws a card. He plays Urza's Saga as land for turn. He casts his other commander, Tymna the Weaver. He activates Teferi's first ability. Iban remembers his Scrawling Crawler's trigger. Iggy loses 1 life from drawing a card, then passes the turn. Raj draws a card. Scrawling Crawler triggers. He loses 1 life. In response, Nikki says,
Taray mo. Sheesh! Mamamatay pa lang ako una.
Ikaw kailangan mo.
Raj plays Dryad Arbor, then quickly passes the turn. Nikki untaps. Out of time triggers at the beginning of upkeep, 1-time counter is removed. Nikki draws a card. Scrawling Crawler triggers, she loses 1 life. She plays a Plains. She casts Sensei's Divining Top. She pays 1 to activate its ability. She looks at the top 3 cards of her library, then puts them back in any order. She then activates her commander, Shorikai. She draws 2 cards, discards a card and creates a 1/1 pilot token. Scrawling Crawler triggers, she loses 2 life. She casts Altar of the Brood. She moves to combat and attack Teferi. Iggy declares no blockers. Teferi takes 2 damage and dies. Nikki ends her turn. Iban untaps. Scrawling Crawler triggers at the beginning of his upkeep. Each player draws a card. Nikki, Raj and Iggy lose 1 life each. Then, Iban draws a card for turn. He plays Hinterland Harbor. He attacks Raj using Scrawling Crawler for 3 damage, then pass the turn. Iggy untaps, draws a card and loses 1 life from Scrawling Crawler. He casts Grim Hireling. He attacks Iban with Tymna the Weaver. Iban takes it and loses 2 life. Iggy gains 2 life because of lifelink. He pays 1 life to trigger Tymna's ability. He draws a card and again lose 1 life from Scrawling Crawler. Grim Hireling triggers and creates 2 treasure tokens. Iggy casts Spellseeker. He searches an offer you can't refuse, reveals it, then puts it to his hand, then passes the turn. Raj draws a card. He plays a forest. He casts Elves of Deep Shadow. Iban remembers his Scrawling Crawler's trigger. Raj loses 1 life because of the draw. He passes the turn. Nikki untaps, draws a card, then loses 1 life to Scrawling Crawler. She activates Sensei's Divining Top to look at the top 3 cards of her library. She then activates Shorikai. She draws 2 cards, discards 1 card, and creates a 1/1 pilot token. Scrawling Crawler triggers, Nikki loses 2 life. Altar of the Brood triggers, Raj, Iggy and Iban mills 1. Nikki moves to combat. She attacks Iggy with a Trinket Mage and Iban with a pilot. No blocks. Iggy loses 2 life, Iban loses 1. She casts Silver Mirror. Altar of the Brood triggers and her opponent's mills 1 card. She passes the turn. Iban untaps. Scrawling Crawler triggers at the beginning of his upkeep. Everyone draws a card. Iban's opponents loses 1 life each. He then draws a card for turn. He plays Seaside Citadel. He plays a Duskshell Crawler. ETB triggers and he puts a +1/+1 counter on Scrawling Crawler. He attacks Iggy with it. Iggy takes 4 damage, and Iban passes the turn. Iggy untaps. He draws a card. Urza's Saga triggers. Iggy floats 1 mana out of it, sacrifices Urza's Saga and puts Mox Amber into the battlefield. He taps 8 mana and cast Hoarding Broodlord. The table discussed what to do, but Raj and Nikki passed priority, being the last person to respond. Iban says.
Kanina ako pumigil sa display, sir
In response, Iban casts Strix Serenade to counter Hoarding Broodlord. But Iggy also casts an offer you can't refuse to counter Strix Serenade. Nikki then casts Misdirection by exiling Teferi Time Reveler as an alternate cost. Misdirection resolves, changing the target of an offer you can't refuse to itself. An offer you can't refuse fizzles because Misdirection already resolved. Strix Serenade resolves and counters Hoarding Broodlord. Iggy gets a 2/2 bird in return. He moves to combat. He attacks Iban with Tymna the Weaver and Spellseeker. Iban blocked Tymna with Duskshell Crawler and takes 1 damage from Spellseeker. Iggy gains 2 life from lifelink. Iggy triggers Tymna's ability. He loses 1 life and draws 1 card. Scrawling Crawler triggers. Iggy loses another life. Dire Hireling triggers, producing 2 treasures. Iggy plays Reflecting Pool as land for turn. And when everyone thinks it's over, Iggy casts Gamble. And yet again, there's chaos while the table discusses what to do.
Gamble.
Wala, basta sa akin.
Ako gagawa dyan, hindi ako group.
Cards yun ano? Magiging 6 after gamble. Ha?
The table runs out of interaction, and Gamble finally resolves. Iggy searches a card and puts it into his hand. His opponents then choose 1 card at random from his hand to discard.
O game, sino gusto mamili ng i-discard?
Ako para sa akin si Iban yung mamimili. Kasi
Si Iban?
siya yung tumipigil kanina pa. So,
Okay.
Ako rin si Iban kasi bobo ako eh.
Pili ka ba? Tingin mo di-discard, no?
What do you think will happen next? Will Iban pick the right card? Or will Iggy be victorious? If you like this type of content, please like, share and follow my page. These type of videos are, for some reasons, really time consuming to make. Liking the video motivates me a lot, thanks. Going back, Iban picks.
Fuck! Yan yun!
Tamis! Spirit to tamis!
Yan yun!
Nakita mo sa camera!
Reanimate!
Anime, nakala ko spirit to tamis eh. May gusto kang kunin? Yung pinaghirapan namin.
Kinumpleto mo yung yung stoppage.
Pinaghirapan namin yun.
Okay. Valid.
Tapos i-reanimate mo lang.
And ako, go.
Before Iggy ends his turn, Raj casts Sprout Swarm and buys it back to create 2/1/1 Saproling tokens.
Yan na, mga saprolers.
Raj untaps, draws a card and loses 1 life to Scrawling Crawler. He plays a command tower. He casts Birds of Paradise. He casts Beseech the Queen, searches and reveals Allosaurus Shepherd. The table reacts.
Oh, shit.
Ayaw niya magalaw
Oh, shit.
Casting.
Oh, shit na tayo dito. Oh, shit na. Oh, shit.
Raj plays Allosaurus Shepherd, then passes the turn after denying that he is the threat. Nikki untaps, out of time triggers at the beginning of her upkeep, removing 1-time counter. She draws a card, she loses 1 life to Scrawling Crawler, she plays Exotic Orchard. She activates Sensei's ability to look at the top 3 cards of her library. She activates Shorikai's ability, she draws 2 cards, discards a card and creates a 1/1 pilot token. She loses 2 life to Scrawling Crawler. She remembers her Altar of the Brood trigger from the land that she played earlier, each opponent mills 1 card. She then attacks Iban with Trinket Mage and 2 1/1 tokens. She again remembers to put a 1/1 token from Shorikai's ability earlier. Her opponents again mill 1 card from Altar of the Brood. Iban blocks Trinket Mage with Duskshell Crawler and takes 2 damage from the tokens. Then, Nikki casually says,
Okay, sige. Mag-board wipe na tayo. Pasok
What
ba
the
to?
fuck?
Wrath of God.
Papayag ba tayo dyan?
Siyempre, ba't di ka pumayag?
Papayag ba tayo dyan?
Wrath of God resolves and Nikki says,
Put all creatures into their owners' discard piles.
Nikki then casts Felwar Stone, Altar of the Brood triggers, her opponents mill 1 card and again, happily passes the turn. Iban untaps, draws a card and played an untapped Temple Garden. He casts Collective Effort targeting out of time. Collective Effort resolves and the phased creatures return to their owners. Iggy untaps and draws a card. He then recasts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. He moves to combat and attack Raj with Kraum. Raj has no flying blockers and therefore takes 4 commander damage. Tymna's ability triggers, Iggy loses 1 life and draws 1 card. He passes the turn. Raj untaps and draws a card. He casts Titania's command. He chooses 2 options. First is to exile target player's graveyard. Second is to create 2/2/2 green bear creature tokens. Raj chooses to exile Iggy's graveyard containing 15 cards. Raj gains 15 life. Before he passes the turn, Nikki activates Sensei's ability. She looks at the top 3 cards of her library and arranges them in any order. Raj ends his turn. Nikki untaps and draws a card. She plays Flooded Strand. Altar of the Brood triggers, her opponents mill 1 card. She again activates Sensei's ability to look at the top 3 cards of her library. She activates Shorikai's ability. She draws 2 cards, discards a card and creates a 1/1 pilot token. She casts Soul Ring, Altar of the Brood triggers twice. Her opponents mill 2 cards. She passes the turn. Iban untaps, draws a card and quickly ends his turn. Iggy untaps and draws a card for turn. He casts Leyline of Anticipation. He casts Esper Sentinel. He swings Kraum to Raj for 4 damage. Tymna's ability triggers, Iggy loses 1 life and draws 1 card. He passes the turn. Raj untaps, draws a card and plays a forest. He then finally casts his commander, Witherbloom the Balancer. Trying to find an answer, Nikki activates Sensei's ability to look at the top 3 cards of her library. Witherbloom resolves, and the table rejoices as Raj ends his turn. Nikki untaps then draws a card for turn. She plays Academy Ruins. Altar of the Brood triggers, her opponents mill a card. She activates Sensei's ability to look at and arrange the top 3 cards of her library. She activates Shorikai, she draws 2 cards, discard a card and creates a 1/1 pilot token. Altar of the Brood triggers again and her opponents mill a card. She cracks Flooded Strand, she loses 1 life, searches an island and puts it into the battlefield. Altar triggers, her opponents mill 1 card. She then casts Foundry Inspector. Altar triggers again, her opponents mill 1. Nikki ends his turn. Iban draws a card for turn. He casts Conclave Mentor. Ms. Bumbleflower triggers, Iban puts a +1/+1 counter to itself, then he chooses Raj to draw a card. Then he attacks Iggy with Ms. Bumbleflower, for 3 damage. And before Iban ends his turn, Iggy flashes and Vivi Ornadeer. The table, surprisingly, has no response and Vivi resolves. Iban passes the turn. Iggy untaps then draws a card. He plays an untapped Blood Crypt and loses 2 life. Then, he immediately casts Silence. The table, again, discusses what to do. Nikki immediately says,
Wala talaga, wala akong magagawa talaga. Wala na, katapusan na natin.
Iban replies,
Siyempre, sino pa ba? Ako na naman.
Eto na, tagapagligtas!
Iban casts Muddle the Mixture to counter Silence. Esper Sentinel triggers, Iggy draws a card. Ms. Bumbleflower triggers, Iban puts 2+1/+1 counters to itself because of Conclave Mentor. He then chooses Nikki to draw a card. Nikki activates Sensei to arrange the top 3 cards of her library before drawing. Muddle resolves, Silence is countered. Iggy then casts Malevolent Hermit from his graveyard, transforming it to Benevolent Geist. Iban casts Dawn's Truce, gifting a card to Nikki. Nikki draws a card. Ms. Bumbleflower triggers the second time. Iban draws 2 cards, put 2+1/+1 counter because of Conclave Mentor and chooses Nikki to draw another card. Iban then casts Arcane Denial to counter Malevolent Hermit. Ms. Bumbleflower triggers again, putting 2+1/+1 counter. Iban again chooses Nikki to draw in an attempt to find an additional answer to Iggy's board state. Arcane Denial resolves. Malevolent Hermit is countered. Nikki uses her Sensei to arrange the top 3 cards of her library again before drawing, but claims she has no answer at the moment. Iggy uses Vivi's ability to get 1 mana and plays Springleaf Drum. Vivi triggers, getting a +1/+1 counter and dealing 1 damage to each opponent. Iggy ends his turn. Raj untaps. At the beginning of his upkeep, Iggy draws 2 cards and Iban draws 1 card because of Arcane Denial. Raj draws a card for turn. He casts Praetor's Council. Esper Sentinel triggers, Iggy draws a card. The table discusses what to do, then Nikki says,
Ano, countering ko?
Draw ka lang.
1 like. 1 like ko, kakountering ko yan, no?
She then realizes that she can only counter instants, so Iban says,
Ako na naman. Putang ina. Ikaw.
Iban then casts an Offer You Can't Refuse to counter Praetor's Council. Esper Sentinel triggers, Iggy draws a card. Ms. Bumbleflower triggers, putting 2+1/+1 counter to herself. Iban lets Raj draw 1 card. Raj then casts Army of the Damned. It resolves, creating 13 tapped 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Nikki responds by saying,
Tahimik lang kunwari si Rog, pero
Hindi, wala
masama.
talaga ako kanina.
Maitim
Nakita
yung
mo.
mga balak.
Itim nung deck ko eh.
Raj then casts Exsanguinate from the prepared Stenchian Sanguinist. Because of his commander, he can cast this for X18. Meaning, each opponent will lose 18 life, he will gain 54 life. And when the table thought Iggy will die, he taps 7 mana and casts Hullbreaker Horror. Then he casts Cabal Ritual. Vivi triggers, getting +1/+1 counter and dealing 1 damage to each opponent. Hullbreaker Horror triggers, targeting Mox Amber. Nikki casts Dispel to counter Cabal Ritual. Dispel counters Cabal Ritual. Mox Amber returns to Iggy's hand. He now presents a loop of casting and returning Mox Amber and Soul Ring to hand via Hullbreaker Horror's ability and killing the table with unlimited Vivi triggers. And finally, Iggy wins the game.